Robert Saleh, the head coach of the team, announced to reporters on Wednesday that Zach is back. And that whole thing from Monday about Zach Wilson reportedly being reluctant to play, I just wish it would have been handled differently, as does Aaron Rodgers. Separate and apart from whether someone was trying to sabotage Zach Wilson, I'm not sure that's the case. I just know from being in this business, there is a temptation to rush to Twitter or wherever with news. And the juicier the news, the more quickly you feel compelled to get there because someone else may get it first. So it doesn't get vetted the way it should. That's what I keep coming back to. The advice that someone gave me when it comes to determining when to reach out to the subject of a report for comment. When do you owe it to the subject of the report to contact that person, that team, that coach, that whoever, and give them a chance to respond to what you're about to report? When it's something like this, you need to take the time. And I don't mean this to be a criticism of The Athletic. They had 2 reporters on this. That's fine. But I think that desire to be first, that desire to beat ESPN to the punch, desire to beat NFL Network to the punch, that overcame good basic journalistic practices. And look, I've got no journalistic education, but I've been doing this 23 years. And I've learned a lot from my screw-ups. And over time, I've gotten to the point where I understand there's an instinct that kicks in when it's time to try to get a comment from someone who was on the wrong end of a report that makes them look bad. And this makes Zach Wilson look bad, and there's no taking it back at this point. Now, I don't know how much it would have changed things, but out of fairness to the person who is the subject of the report, an effort needs to be made to get a comment from him. The advice that I got, if you're going to report that the Easter Bunny does not like chocolate, you'd better get a comment from the Easter Bunny. When it's something that goes against the very character of the person, the nature of what they do, the reason for them even being in the job they're in. And this was pretty strong. You got a football player who's reluctant to play football. No matter who you hear that from, unless you hear from the guy who's at the heart of it, maybe he'd admit it, or maybe he'd give some explanation that kind of makes it a little bit true. I remember when Carson Wentz, the first time we got a glimpse that there were teammates who were concerned about the way that he interacted with them. When he finally spoke about it, he said, yeah, you know what? They have a point. So regardless of whether the person refutes it, confirms it, has no comment, whatever, that remember that Easter Bunny comment as you're digesting news, or if you're a reporter out there that's listening to this, first of all, thank you. Second of all, keep that in mind. When it runs counter to the very nature of the person's work, and this one did, get a comment. Try to get a comment. And you can say, if you try and they stonewall, you can say, we request a comment. No comment was provided. There was no response to our request for comment. There was no comment. The comment was no comment, whatever it may be. I just feel like to take away the perception that it was some sort of a personal attack on Zach Wilson, giving him an opportunity to add to the narrative as it's being crafted is critical. Now, what's critical for the Jets? Let's win some football games. And I don't like how they've handled this quarterback position. Saleh said today he's always believed Zach Wilson gives them the best chance to win. Why'd you bench him then? Well, we needed a spark. So you're going to get a spark from somebody who's less than the guy that you think is going to give you the best chance to win. And this all goes back to how toxic it is, frankly, to be a member of the Jets organization. Biggest media market in the world, and it comes with all sorts of problems. The fans are impatient. The media is impatient. No matter what you do, if you're not winning, they don't care what the explanation is. You're not winning. You stink. Even though they lost their starting quarterback 4 snaps into the season. No excuses, and they're going to pounce, and they're going to pounce, and they're going to pounce. And I think the problem is the Jets have gotten themselves so twisted up with this, it's going to keep them from being as good as they can be in 2024. As I've said, Aaron Rodgers needs to come out right now and declare that he's playing next year. No delicate genius routine, no deferring the final decision until March so you can get 500,000 users simultaneously logged on to the Pat McAfee YouTube channel and then another 5 million tuned into ESPN for the big reveal on what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. No dark rooms, no ayahuasca. Tell us now that you're coming back next year. So then Woody Johnson, the owner of the team, can follow it up by saying we're not making any major changes. We will make changes, but Joe Douglas will be back as the GM. Robert Saleh will be back as the head coach. Nathaniel Hackett will be back as the offensive coordinator. Aaron Rodgers will be back as the starting quarterback. I think they need to have him do it before they do it because we know how he is. This isn't a criticism. It's a reflection of reality. If somebody from the Jets would come out and say Aaron Rodgers is definitely coming back next year, he'll be pissed. He was pissed about the Zach Wilson leak. And he says some stuff publicly that maybe would be better handled privately. It's funny. There's an irony to it, if I'm using the word properly, that he's complaining basically about dirty laundry being aired out by people who are talking to reporters off the record. Well, he's saying on the record it's a chicken shit thing to do. Why not just say, this is an issue that I'm going to handle internally with my teammates, with the coaching staff, and we'll make sure that these things don't happen in the future. The problem is when you have a horde of media swarming around the team, and when you have an item of interest, of controversy, of intrigue, it sells. The Jets sell. They may not be very good, but they're an interesting team, and everything they do is interesting. And part of this comes from the fact that Aaron Rodgers wants us to be interested. He wants to be the center of attention. He wants to be the guy that we all talk about, and then he wants to be able to complain that we're talking about him too much. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.